5 men. 5 armed, professional killers against one bleeding heir to an empire. It should have been a massacre. It should have been the end of the line for Ryo Sun-woo. But they made one fatal calculation error. They didn't see the waitress taking out the trash. And they definitely didn't know that the waitress was a weapon of war trying desperately to be a civilian. A man lunged with a knife, and she disarmed him with a move she'd sworn she'd never use again, breaking his wrist with surgical precision. 3 more attackers circled the bleeding Korean man on the ground, and Keisha's body moved like water, flowing through combinations her hands remembered, even though her mind had tried to forget. 15 seconds. That's all it took. Before we dive into this high-octane romance, I need you to stop right now and smash that subscribe button. You do not want to miss a single second of this story. Turn on those notifications so you're the first to know what happens next. Like this video if you're ready for some action, and let's get into it. The rain in Los Angeles doesn't wash things clean, it just makes the grime slicker. Behind the Jade Palace restaurant, the air smelled of wet concrete and old frying oil. Ryo Sun-woo was on his knees, blood painting a dark abstract art across his shirt, his vision blurring as the circle of men tightened around him. He was resigned to it. In his world, death wasn't a question of if, but when. The first attacker raised a lead pipe, a crude instrument for a crude execution. Then, the shadows moved. Keisha Vance didn't make a conscious decision to intervene. It was deeper than thought, older than her current life. It was a cellular imperative. The moment she saw the mechanics of the violence, the stance, the intent, her mind shut down, and the soldier woke up. She dropped the trash bag. The sound was swallowed by the rain, but her movement was a thunderclap. She didn't run, she flowed. Keisha closed the distance before the man with the pipe could begin his downswing. Her left hand trapped his wrist, her right palm driving upward into his chin with enough force to snap the head back and collapse the windpipe. He went down without a sound, his brain shutting off before he hit the wet pavement. 1 down. 4 to go. The second man turned, a switchblade flickering in the dim alley light like a serpent's tongue. He lunged. Keisha didn't retreat. She stepped inside the guard, a move so counterintuitive it froze him for a microsecond. That was all she needed. She caught the knife hand, twisting it against the joint until the radius bone snapped with a wet crunch that echoed off the brick walls. He screamed, dropping the weapon, but she silenced him with a spinning elbow to the temple. Surgical. Precise. Terrifying. The remaining 3 attackers hesitated. They looked at the bleeding Korean man on the ground, then at the woman standing over the bodies of their best fighters. She was wearing a grease-stained apron and sensible non-slip shoes, but she stood with the lethal stillness of a viper. They rushed her all at once. A messy, desperate tactic. Keisha's body became water. She slipped a punch, redirected a kick into another attacker's knee, and used the momentum of the third man to throw him face-first into the dumpster. It was a blur of violence, a 15-second symphony of bone on concrete. And then silence. Just the hiss of rain and the groans of broken men. Keisha stood amidst the carnage, her chest heaving, her knuckles split, and weeping blood mixed with rain. The adrenaline that had turned her into a god was evaporating, leaving behind the cold, shaking reality of what she had just done. Ryo Sun-woo pushed himself up on one elbow, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. He stared at her, his eyes wide. But it wasn't gratitude Keisha saw in that gaze. It was recognition. Not of her name, but of her nature. He was looking at her the way a wolf looks at another wolf. He saw the training. He saw the killer. Jesus Christ, Keisha whispered, the words trembling. The facade was shattered. For 3 years, she had built a fortress of mediocrity. She was Keisha the waitress, the quiet girl who picked up extra shifts, the nobody who lived in a cash-only studio apartment. She had buried the soldier deep in the desert of her memory. But in 15 seconds, she had dug her up and put her on display. Sun-woo coughed, a wet, rattling sound. He tried to sit up, his expensive suit ruined. You. He rasped, his voice holding a strange authority even in his weakness. Who are you? Nobody, Keisha gasped, backing away. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "I'm nobody." "I didn't see anything," she stammered, panic clawing at her throat. "You didn't see anything. We never met." "Wait." Sunwoo reached out a bloody hand, a plea suspended in the air. But Keisha was already gone. She turned and sprinted, her apron strings trailing behind her like a tattered cape. She ran out of the alley, her work shoes slapping rhythmically against the puddles. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer, singing the song of authority she could not afford to meet. She didn't look back. She couldn't. If he found out who she really was, if they found out, the life she had painstakingly constructed would burn to ash. What Keisha didn't know, as she vanished into the labyrinth of the city, was that Ryu Sunwoo, heir to the violent throne of the Baekta Syndicate, had a photographic memory. He had catalogued the slope of her nose, the terrifying grace of her movement, and the terror in her eyes. And Ryu Sunwoo never, ever forgot a debt. 3 days later, the world had not ended, but it felt precarious, like glass vibrating before a high note shatters it. Keisha was back at Big Mama Hattie's diner in Silver Lake, a place that smelled of bacon grease, old vinyl, and comfort. She moved through the morning rush on autopilot, pouring endless cups of weak coffee, dodging the gaze of the regulars. She had covered the bruising on her knuckles with heavy concealer and wore a long-sleeved thermal under her uniform shirt. "You stumbled on the stairs," she whispered to herself, rehearsing the lie. "Just clumsy. Just a clumsy waitress." "You okay, baby girl?" Big Mama Hattie leaned over the counter, her presence immense and warm. She was 60 years of iron and sugar, the only person in this city who had given Keisha a job with no references and a fake ID. "You've been jumpy as a cat on a hot tin roof since Monday," Hattie observed, eyes narrowing with maternal suspicion. "I'm fine, Mama Hattie. Just insomnia." Keisha forced a smile, grabbing the coffee pot like a lifeline. Totally normal. She needed to be normal. She needed to be invisible. The bell above the door chimed, a cheerful, innocent sound that made Keisha's spine stiffen. She looked up reflexively. The air left the room. Ryu Sunwoo stood in the doorway. He looked nothing like the broken, muddy figure from the alley. He was restored. Pristine. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Keisha made in a year, tailored to accentuate the broad shoulders and the lean, dangerous power of his frame. His dark hair was styled back, revealing a face that was devastatingly handsome and utterly terrifying. He moved with a predatory grace, a shark gliding through a koi pond. Conversations in the diner died down as people instinctively averted their eyes, sensing power. But Sunwoo wasn't looking at them. His eyes, dark, intelligent, and intense, locked onto Keisha with the precision of a laser sight. There was no hesitation. He knew. Keisha felt the urge to vault the counter and run out the back, but her feet were nailed to the linoleum. She was trapped in the open. He walked straight to the counter, never breaking eye contact. He sat on the stool directly in front of her, the leather creaking under his weight. Up close, she could see the faint yellowing of a healing bruise on his jaw and a small butterfly bandage above his eyebrow, the only evidence of the violence she had interrupted. "Coffee, please," he said. His English was perfect, accentless, smooth as silk. "Black. No sugar." Keisha's hand trembled as she reached for a mug. She hated the tremor. It betrayed her. She poured the dark liquid, fighting to keep her face a mask of boredom. "Coming right up," she said, her voice steady, though her pulse was deafening in her ears. "You disappeared the other night before I could thank you," he said softly. The volume was intimate, meant only for the two of them, creating a private bubble in the crowded diner. "That was rude." "I don't know what you're talking about, mister." Keisha set the cup down a little too hard. Coffee sloshed over the rim. "Will that be all?" "No." Sunwoo reached into his jacket pocket. Keisha's muscles coiled, expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a smartphone and slid it across the Formica counter. Keisha looked down. Her stomach plummeted through the floor. It was security footage. Grainy, black and white, but undeniable. It showed a woman in an apron dismantling 5 armed men with the efficiency of a machine. It showed her face clearly as she looked up at the camera for a split second. I think we should talk somewhere private, Sunwoo said, taking a deliberate sip of the scorching coffee. I'm working, Keisha hissed. Then I'll wait. He set the cup down. I have all day. I have all week, if necessary. Though I imagine Big Mama Hattie might wonder why a man in a $3,000 suit is staring at her waitress for 8 hours straight. Keisha gripped the edge of the counter until her knuckles turned white. She wanted to tell him to go to hell. She wanted to grab her go bag and disappear into the ether. But looking at him, she knew it was too late. He had found her. The only way out was through. My break is in 20 minutes, she said, defeated. There's a park 2 blocks east. Near the reservoir. Perfect. I'll be waiting. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It transformed his face, making him look younger, less like a kingpin. And Miss Vance, thank you for saving my life. Even if you did try to ghost me afterward. He stood and walked out, leaving a $20 bill on the counter for a $2 coffee. Keisha stared at the money. He knew her name. Her fake name, sure, but he knew it. He had probably dissected her entire existence in the last 72 hours. Her sanctuary was breached. The park was awash in the golden haze of a Wednesday afternoon. It was peaceful, mothers pushing strollers, a jogger stretching against a tree. It felt like a different planet from the violence that tethered Keisha and Sunwoo together. She found him sitting on a park bench, watching a group of ducks navigate the pond. He shifted as she approached, gesturing for her to sit. He kept a respectful distance, not crowding her, but his presence was heavy. Your former military, he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. Special operations, based on the technique. Navy? Marines? Keisha remained standing, arms crossed over her chest, protecting her vitals. Does it matter? It matters because 5 men with knives and lead pipes couldn't land a single hit on you, Sunwoo said, turning to look up at her. The sunlight caught the sharp angles of his face. It matters because you moved like you've killed before. It matters because I need to know the caliber of the person who saved my life. Why? Keisha snapped. So you can recruit me? Add me to your little criminal empire? Thanks, but I'm not interested in being a thug. He chuckled dryly. You know who I am then? Ryu Sunwoo. Heir to the Baekta Syndicate, Keisha recited, her voice cold. Your family controls half of Koreatown's imports, exports, and protection services. You were ambushed by the Red Pole Gang. Retaliation for a territory dispute over the downtown garment district. Sunwoo raised an eyebrow, impressed. You're well informed. I'm careful. There's a difference. She took a step back. Look, I helped you because I was there. Wrong place, wrong time. Just a reflex. I don't want money. I don't want a job. I don't want anything from you except to be left alone. What if I said I can't do that? Sunwoo stood up. And suddenly, Keisha was reminded of how tall he was, how much space he occupied. He wasn't threatening her, not overtly, but the air around him crackled with intensity. The men you fought, they survived, he said quietly. And they know someone interfered. They know a woman humiliated them. They're looking for you, Keisha. Fear, cold and sharp, spiked in her chest. How would they even know? Because one of them had a dash cam running on his car in the alley. Lower quality than my security footage, but clear enough to get a description. His expression was grave, stripped of the earlier playfulness. Whether you like it or not, you're involved now. The Red Pole Gang doesn't forgive interference. They lose face, they demand blood. And they have the resources to find you. Then I'll disappear, Keisha said, though the words tasted like ash. I've done it before. Have you? He stepped closer, his eyes searching her face, dismantling her defenses. Is that why you're waitressing under a name that doesn't match the social security number attached to it? Why you live in a cash-only apartment complex that doesn't run background checks? You're already running from something, Keisha. Adding a Korean crime syndicate to your list of enemies seems unwise. Keisha's blood ran cold. He had peeled back the layers of her lie effortlessly. You investigated me, she accused. I protect what's mine, he countered smoothly. And you saved my life. That makes you mine to protect. The possessiveness in his voice made her breath hitch. It wasn't creepy, it was strangely grounding. I have a proposition, he continued, his voice firm, brooking no argument. Work for me. security training, consulting, whatever capacity utilizes those terrifying skills of yours. In exchange, I protect you. From the Red Pole Gang and from whoever else you're hiding from. I don't work for criminals, Keisha spat. You don't work for anyone right now, he pointed out brutally. You pour coffee and pretend you're not wasting a lifetime of elite training. You're a Ferrari parked in a scrapyard. He pulled a sleek, heavy business card from his pocket and pressed it into her hand. His fingers brushed hers, warm, calloused, real. Think about it. But think fast, Keisha. They're coming. The only question is whether you face them alone in an alley or with the most powerful organization in the city watching your back. He walked away, leaving her standing in the sunlight, the card burning against her palm like a brand. Despite every instinct screaming at her to run, to pack her bag and flee to Mexico, Keisha pocketed the card. She went back to work. Deep down, she knew her decision was already made. She was tired of running. The attack came 2 nights later. Keisha was walking home from her late shift. The city was asleep, the streets empty canyons of concrete and shadow. She had her keys laced between her fingers, a pathetic weapon compared to what she was used to, but better than nothing. She felt them before she saw them. The prickle on the back of her neck. The change in air pressure. She noticed the black sedan trailing her 3 blocks from her apartment. She noticed how it slowed when she slowed, how it didn't turn when it should have. She didn't go home. She couldn't lead them to her sanctuary. Instead, she turned sharp left, heading toward the old industrial district. Warehouses. Broken streetlights. Dead ends. Places where a scream would just be part of the ambient noise. If they wanted her, she would choose the battleground. She stopped in the shadow of an abandoned textile factory. The sedan screeched to a halt behind her, blocking the exit. 4 men spilled out. Red Pole Gang. She could tell by the tattoos creeping up their necks and the aggressive, sloppy way they moved. You shouldn't have interfered, bitch, the leader snarled. He was holding a tire iron. Now you pay the tax. Keisha dropped her purse. She rolled her shoulders, feeling the familiar click of joints preparing for war. Come on then, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Let's get this over with. I'm tired. They attacked together. It was smarter than the first group, but not smart enough. Keisha had been fighting coordinated teams since she was 18. Muscle memory took the wheel. She was a whirlwind, dodging the tire iron, sweeping the legs of the second man, shattering the nose of the third with a palm strike. She was winning. She was actually winning. Until the trunk of the sedan popped open. A 5th man stepped out. He was different. Massive. The size of a refrigerator, but he moved with the light-footed grace of a dancer. He cracked his neck, staring at her with dead eyes. Keisha recognized the stance immediately. Former military. Mercenary. He didn't rush. He waited for her to extend a kick, then caught her leg in a grip like a vice. He twisted. Keisha went airborne, slamming into the pavement hard enough to rattle her teeth. Before she could recover, a boot connected with her ribs. Snap. Pain, white-hot and blinding, exploded in her side. She gasped, rolling away, but he was on her. He was too big, too fast, and she was fighting for other men. The mercenary grabbed her by the throat, lifting her off her feet. Keisha clawed at his hands, her vision swimming with black spots. She was going to die here. In a shitty industrial lot, killed by a rented thug because she had been stupid enough to save a stranger. Suddenly, high beams flooded the alley, blinding them all. An engine roared a deep, guttural growl of expensive horsepower. Let her go, a voice commanded. Sharp. Imperious. Korean. The mercenary hesitated, squinting into the light. That hesitation was all Keisha needed. She drove her thumbs into his eyes. He roared, dropping her. She hit the ground and swept his legs, bringing the giant down. Ryu Sunwoo's people were there. 5 men in dark suits materialized from the shadows, surrounding the Red Pole gangsters with guns drawn. The fight was over before it began. Sunwoo stepped out of the car. He walked straight to Keisha, ignoring the chaos around him. He took in her bleeding lip, her labored breathing, the way she cradled her side. I had it under control, she wheezed, tasting copper. Of course you did, Sunwoo said, his voice tight with suppressed rage. That's why you're bleeding and probably have 2 broken ribs. He shrugged off his jacket, cashmere, warm, smelling of sandalwood and rain, and draped it around her shoulders. It engulfed her, a shield against the world. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you patched up. I can take care of myself, Sunwoo. I know, he said, and for the first time, his eyes were soft. But please. You saved my life. Let me return the favor. She was too tired to argue, too hurt to run. So she let him guide her to his car, let his men handle the trash, and tried not to think about how safe she felt for the first time in 3 years. The penthouse was a revelation. Keisha had expected gold-plated tacky, a Scarface fantasy. Instead, Ryu Sunwoo's home was a sanctuary of minimalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the glittering city, but the interior was warm woods, cream leather, and walls lined with books and abstract art. Sit, he directed, pointing to a massive leather sofa. I'll get the medical kit. I'm getting blood on your $3,000 couch, Keisha muttered, clutching his jacket closer. It's leather. It wipes off. He returned with a kit that looked more like a field medic's trauma bag than a household first aid box. He set it down on the coffee table and looked at her. Shirt off, he said, his tone clinical. I need to check the ribs. Keisha hesitated. To take off her shirt was to reveal more than just skin. It was to reveal the map of her trauma. But the pain in her side was a jagged knife with every breath. Slowly, wincing, she pulled the thermal over her head. Sunwoo didn't flinch. His expression remained stoic, but his eyes darkened as they traced the landscape of her torso. Scars crisscrossed her skin, bullet wounds, knife slashes, burn marks. The hieroglyphics of violence. His fingers were cool and gentle as he probed her ribs. He was professional, but the intimacy of it, his hands on her bare skin, the heat radiating between them, was electric. 2 cracked, he diagnosed. Maybe 3. I'll wrap them. You need to see a doctor. No doctors, Keisha said instantly, panic flaring. No hospitals. No paper trails. He paused, his hands resting lightly on her waist. He looked up, locking eyes with her. Who are you running from, Keisha? Really? Does it matter? It does if they're coming for you the way the Red Pole gang just did. He began wrapping her torso with an ace bandage, his movements efficient. I can't protect you if I don't know the nature of the threat. Keisha looked at him. 3 years of silence. 3 years of carrying the weight alone. And here was this man, this beautiful, dangerous criminal, offering to share the burden. I was Army Special Forces, she began, the words feeling rusty in her throat. 3 tours in Afghanistan. 2 in Syria. My last mission, it went bad. We were supposed to extract a high-value target. But it was a setup. She looked away, staring at the lights of the city. My entire team was wiped out. Everyone except me. I survived because I made a deal with the devil. Her voice cracked. A local warlord named Zahir. He offered me a choice, work for him or die with my team. So I worked for him. For 6 months. I did things, horrible things. Until I found a way to escape. Silence stretched in the room, heavy and thick. Now, she whispered, the U.S. Army thinks I'm a traitor who defected. And Zahir, he wants me dead for escaping. I'm not just running, Sunwoo. I'm radioactive. Anyone close to me ends up dead. Sunwoo finished the bandage. He sat back on his heels, his face unreadable. That's why you use a fake name. Why you live off the grid. Yeah. And why I can't work for you. She tried to stand, but the pain forced her back down. I'm a liability. Zahir isn't a street gang. He's a monster. Keisha, Sunwoo said, his voice incredibly calm. I run a criminal syndicate. People want me dead every Tuesday before lunch. Adding your enemies to the list doesn't change my risk calculation. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. He moved to sit beside her on the couch. You're a soldier without an army. You're alone, hunted, and running out of road. And I am offering you a fortress. Why? She asked, tears pricking her eyes. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because you saved my life without hesitation, he said. Because you are wasting your potential pouring coffee. And because... He hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability cracking his armor. Because I know what it's like to be trapped in a life you didn't choose. To do things you can't undo. He reached out, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. I think maybe we could save each other. Keisha studied him. She saw the loneliness in his eyes, mirroring her own. It was insane. It was reckless. It was trading one war for another. But she was so tired of fighting alone. Okay, she breathed. Okay, I'll do it. But Sunwoo, she grabbed his hand. If this goes bad, if your people get hurt because of me, then we handle it, he said firmly. Together. He squeezed her hand. Welcome to the Baekta Syndicate, Keisha Vance. She squeezed back, sealing her fate. And despite the danger, despite the logic screaming in her head, it felt right. The next 6 months were a metamorphosis. Keisha moved into a secure apartment 2 floors below Sunwoo's penthouse. She traded her apron for tactical gear and blazers. She swept through the Baekdu organization like a hurricane. Your people are loyal, but they fight like brawlers, not soldiers, she told Sunwoo during her first briefing. Half your guards have zero situational awareness. Your security protocols have more holes than Swiss cheese. His lieutenants bristled, offended that this outsider, this woman, was criticizing them. But Sunwoo just nodded, leaning back in his chair with a faint smile. Fix it, he said. So she did. Keisha ran boot camps at dawn. She redesigned the perimeter security. She taught his men how to clear a room, how to spot a tail, how to de-escalate before violence became necessary. She was brutal, exacting, and relentless. And slowly, the resentment turned into respect. They saw the results. They saw that she made them better. And in the quiet moments between the work, Keisha got to know the man behind the title. She learned that Ryu Sunwoo had never wanted to be a boss. He had been studying economics at UCLA, dreaming of a legitimate life, when his father was assassinated. He had been forced to take the throne at 22 to save his family from annihilation. Why did you stay? She asked him one night. They were in his office, sharing takeout cartons of spicy noodles, paperwork spread between them. You hate the violence. I see it in your eyes. Because 300 families depend on this organization for their livelihood, he said, staring into his noodles. If I walk away, someone crueler takes over. Someone who doesn't care about the community. My father was a tyrant, Keisha. But he protected our people. I can't abandon that legacy, even if I loathe the methods. You're a good man stuck in a bad movie, she said softly. He looked up, his gaze intense. I'm a criminal trying to find a redemption that doesn't exist. We're quite a pair, aren't we? She toasted him with a chopstick. The traitor soldier and the reluctant king. They were. And somewhere in those late-night strategy sessions, amidst the banter and the shared silence, the tectonic plates shifted. It wasn't just respect anymore. It was gravity. The realization hit Keisha like a frag grenade during a mission 3 months later. The Red Pole gang, desperate and losing ground, kidnapped the teenage daughter of one of Sunwoo's key allies. A 14-year-old girl, held for ransom in a shipyard warehouse. We negotiate, Sunwoo said, his face pale. I can't risk a raid. If she gets hurt. Negotiation takes too long, Keisha argued, strapping on a Kevlar vest. Let me get her. Tactical extraction. In and out. Silent. They won't even know I was there until she's gone. It's too dangerous. You're one person. I'm not a person, Sunwoo. I'm a ghost. Trust me. This is what I was made for. He stared at her, fear and trust warring in his eyes. Finally, he nodded. You take comms. If anything feels off, you abort. I won't trade your life for hers. The extraction was a masterclass. Keisha infiltrated the warehouse via the roof. She neutralized 6 guards using non-lethal takedowns, Sunwoo's one strict rule, no killing unless absolutely necessary. She found the girl, terrified but unharmed, and guided her out through the shadows. Clean. Professional. Perfect. But when she pulled the van into the headquarters garage, Sunwoo was waiting. He wasn't acting like a boss. He was pacing like a caged animal. The moment Keisha stepped out of the van, he broke protocol. He crossed the distance in 3 long strides and pulled her into his arms. He held her so tight she could feel the frantic rhythm of his heart against her chest. "Don't ever do that again." He buried his face in her neck, breathing in the scent of gunpowder and sweat. "I was losing my mind." Keisha pulled back, bewildered. "Sunwoo, this is the job. It's what you pay me for." "I know," he rasped, cupping her face with trembling hands. "But you're not just an employee anymore, Keisha. God, you're everything." The confession hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. "And the thought of losing you." She didn't let him finish. She surged up on her toes and kissed him. It was in collision. 3 months of tension, of stolen glances, of unspoken longing, all releasing at once. He made a low sound in his throat and kissed her back, his hands tangling in her hair, pulling her closer as if he could merge their atoms. "This is the moment we've been waiting for. The spark has finally turned into a fire." But in their world, happiness always comes with a price tag. Before the past comes back to haunt them, and trust me, it's coming, make sure you've smashed that subscribe button. Comment below. Do you think their love can survive the war that's about to start? Let me know and keep watching. They broke apart, breathless, foreheads resting against each other. "This is a bad idea," Keisha whispered, her eyes closed. "A terrible idea," Sunwoo agreed, his thumb stroking her cheekbones. "Relationships in this world are a liability. A weakness." "Absolutely." He kissed her again, softer this time, full of promise. "Want to come upstairs? And continue this very bad, dangerous, terrible idea?" "Yes," Keisha said. "God, yes." That night, in the safety of the penthouse, they didn't just sleep together. They unraveled. For Keisha, who had viewed her body as a tool of war for so long, Sunwoo's touch was a reclamation. He worshipped her scars. He treated her not like a soldier, but like a woman, precious, fragile, and beloved. And for Sunwoo, holding Keisha was the first time in years he felt safe. She was the only person in his life who didn't want something from him, who could actually protect him. In the afterglow, tangled in high thread count sheets, Keisha traced a jagged scar on his chest, right over his heart. "What happened here?" she asked softly. "Knife fight." "When I was 20, Sunwoo murmured, staring at the ceiling. "My father was testing me, seeing if I was strong enough to lead. I almost wasn't." "Your father sounds like a piece of work." "He believed strength came from pain, loyalty from fear. He made me into a weapon, Keisha. And then he was surprised when I resented him for it." He pulled her closer, burying his nose in her hair. "But he's gone. And I'm trying to be different. To build something better." "You are different," she promised him. "You care. That makes you stronger, not weaker." "I care about you," he said. "More than is wise." "Same." For a few months, they lived in a bubble of almost happiness. They worked together by day, ruling the city, and fell into bed together at night. It was reckless. It was beautiful. But peace is a rental in the underworld. Eventually, the landlord comes to collect. The threat didn't come from the Red Pole gang. It came from the shadows of Keisha's past. It arrived on a Tuesday morning. A package delivered to the penthouse. No return address. Inside was a small, velvet box. And inside the box was a severed human finger. Beneath it, a note on heavy cardstock, written in elegant Arabic script that Keisha had to translate through a haze of nausea. "Return what belongs to me, or I will take everything you love." Keisha dropped the note, her hands shaking so hard she could barely stand. "He's here," she whispered, the blood draining from her face. "In LA. He found me." Sunwoo caught her before she fell. He looked at the finger, his face hardening into stone. "Who is this?" "Zahir," Keisha choked out. "The warlord. The devil." She looked at Sunwoo, terror in her eyes. "He's not like the gangs you deal with, Sunwoo. He has no rules. He has unlimited resources. He has connections in intelligence agencies, terrorist cells. He's untouchable." "Nothing is untouchable," Sunwoo said, his voice dropping to a lethal octave. He pulled her into his arms, shielding her from the sight of the box. "He'll kill you," Keisha sobbed into his chest. He'll kill everyone. That's what he does. He burns the world until you have no choice but to crawl back to him. Let him try. Sun Woo's grip tightened. You are not running anymore, Keisha. We end this. Together. The war had come to their doorstep. And this time, it wasn't about territory or money. It was about survival. The war with Zahir was not a battle of territory, it was a dissection. He didn't just want to kill Keisha, he wanted to surgically remove everything that gave her shelter. He attacked the Baekdu operations with the precision of a drone strike and the cruelty of a medieval siege. It started with fire. A car bomb detonated outside one of Sunwoo's legitimate restaurants in rush hour. Glass shattered for 3 blocks. 12 people, civilians, waiters, families, were turned into statistics in the blink of an eye. Then, 2 of Sunwoo's top lieutenants vanished, only to be returned 3 days later, broken in body and spirit, bearing messages carved into their skin. Surrender, the messages screamed in blood and bruising. Or watch the city burn. Keisha stood in the war room, staring at the photos of the bombing site. Her reflection in the glass looked ghostly, hollowed out by guilt. Let me go to him, she begged, her voice cracking under the weight of the dead. Sunwoo, please. Let me end this before more people get hurt. He doesn't want your empire. He wants me. No. Sunwoo didn't even look up from the map he was studying. His face was drawn, dark circles bruising the skin under his eyes, but his jaw was set in granite. We find another way. There is no other way. Keisha slammed her hand on the table. I know this man. I know how he thinks. He will not stop until he has crushed everything you built. The only currency he accepts is submission. If I surrender, he leaves you alone. Then we give him you, Sunwoo said, finally looking at her. His eyes were cold, calculating, terrifyingly calm. On our terms. Keisha froze. What? We set a trap, he said, moving a chess piece on the board of the city. We make him believe you are surrendering. We feed his ego. We draw him out of the shadows and into the light. And when he comes to claim his prize, we kill him. It was a suicide mission masked as a strategy. It relied on timing, on acting, and on the arrogance of a man who believed he was a god. The meeting was arranged for midnight in the skeletal remains of an old ironworks factory in the industrial district, neutral ground, vast and echoing. The night before, the air in the penthouse was thick with the things they weren't saying. Keisha stood by the window, watching the endless stream of headlights on the freeway, wondering how many of them were driving toward a future she wouldn't see. If this goes wrong, she started, her voice barely a whisper. It won't, Sunwoo said, coming up behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. He felt solid, real, an anchor in the storm. But if it does, she turned in his arms, gripping his lapels. I need you to know. I love you, Sunwoo. I didn't think I was capable of loving anyone after what I did in Syria. I thought I was broken goods. But you made me believe I could be more than my past. You are more, he said fiercely, leaning down to press his forehead against hers. You are everything. You are the only thing that matters. He kissed her then, a desperate, searing seal on a promise. We are going to survive this, Keisha. We are going to have a future. I promise you. Midnight. The witching hour. Keisha walked into the cavernous factory alone. She was dressed in simple gray sweats, hands raised in surrender, no weapons visible. The space smelled of rust and damp earth. Zahir waited in the center of the floor. He was older than she remembered, his beard shot through with silver, but he radiated the same malevolent charisma that had haunted her nightmares. He was surrounded by his Praetorian guard, 20 men, heavily armed, their eyes scanning the shadows. Keisha, Zahir purred. His voice echoed off the metal beams. My lost property returns to the fold. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were dead things. Did you really think you could hide from me, little bird? Did you think you could fly away? I came back like you wanted, Keisha said, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her insides. Just let the others go. Leave the syndicate out of this. This is between us. Oh, but it is so much more than that now. Zahir stepped closer, inspecting her like a horse at an auction. You cost me time. You cost me money. You cost me reputation. Simply having you back isn't enough payment. He leaned in, his breath smelling of mint and tobacco. I'm going to kill your Korean lover slowly, he whispered. I'm going to make you watch as I dismantle him piece by piece. Then I will burn his entire organization to the ground before we leave this city. As a lesson to anyone else who thinks they can steal from me. That wasn't the deal, Keisha said, her muscles coiling. I don't make deals with livestock, Zahir sneered. He nodded to his men. Search her. Bind her. Then we begin the fun. 2 men approached. And that was when the universe fractured. One of the guards, a man who had known Keisha in Syria, squinted. He saw the shift in her stance. He saw the way she shifted her weight to the balls of her feet. He shouted a warning in Arabic. It's a trap. The ambush was blown. No! Sunwoo's voice roared through the comms in Keisha's ear. Gunfire erupted from the catwalks above. Sunwoo's snipers opened up, raining hell down on Zahir's men. Zahir's guards returned fire instantly. The factory turned into a strobe light of muzzle flashes. The sound was deafening, a physical force that rattled the bones. Keisha dropped low, sliding across the concrete floor as bullets chewed up the ground where she had been standing a second ago. She was unarmed, but she wasn't helpless. She was a weapon. Chaos. Pure, unadulterated chaos. Bodies falling. Screams echoing. The smell of cordite thick and acrid in the air. Keisha moved through the storm like a phantom. She swept the legs of a guard, grabbed his falling pistol, and put 2 rounds in his chest before he hit the ground. She rolled behind a rusted pillar, checking the mag 7 rounds. She scanned the floor. Zahir was running. He was heading for a side exit, flanked by 3 bodyguards. Not this time, she hissed. She broke cover. She took out the first bodyguard with a shot to the neck. The second turned, but she was already on him, using his body as a shield against the third. She snapped his arm, took his weapon, and neutralized the last guard. Now it was just her and Zahir. He turned, a jagged combat knife in his hand. They collided with the viciousness of people who had nothing to lose. It wasn't a fight, it was a brawl. Zahir was strong, desperate, and skilled. He slashed at her, the blade biting deep into her forearm. Keisha didn't scream. She didn't have time. She accepted the pain, used it as fuel. She trapped his knife arm, twisted, and drove her knee into his groin. He doubled over, but lashed out, catching her in the jaw. They went down hard, wrestling in the dirt and blood. Zahir's hands were on her throat, squeezing, choking the life out of her. Keisha's vision began to tunnel. She saw spots of light. She saw the darkness waiting. Bang! The pressure on her throat vanished. Zahir stiffened, a look of profound surprise crossing his face. He slumped to the side, revealing Ryu Sunwoo standing 10 feet away, his pistol smoking, his chest heaving. Move, Sunwoo said, his voice shaking with rage, and I will paint the walls with your brains. Zahir laughed, a wet, bubbling sound. Blood poured from his mouth. You think, killing me, ends this? He gurgled. I have brothers, cousins, an entire network. They will hunt her, forever. Then let them try, Sunwoo said coldly. His finger tightened on the trigger. But you won't be around to see it. He fired again. A finality. Zahir, the monster who had haunted Keisha's every waking moment, collapsed into the dust, just a man. Just a corpse. Keisha stared at the body, gasping for air, clutching her bleeding arm. She felt nothing. No triumph. No joy. Just a hollowing exhaustion. It was over. But the silence was louder than the gunfire. Come on, Sunwoo said gently. He holstered his weapon and reached down, pulling her up from the grime. Let's go home. The aftermath was messy, complicated, and long. Zahir's organization did come looking, just as he had promised. But they found a united front they hadn't expected. The Baekta Syndicate, backed by the allied families of Koreatown, stood as a wall of iron around Keisha. After 3 failed retaliation attempts, the cost became too high. The mercenaries retreated. The contracts were canceled. They decided the girl wasn't worth the blood. The U.S. Army investigation into Keisha's defection was another battle. But Sunwoo fought that one with lawyers and leverage instead of bullets. He used his connections to leak classified evidence of the setup that had killed her team, the impossible choice she had been forced to make. Her record was sealed, not cleared, but buried deep enough that the active pursuit stopped. She was a ghost again, but this time, a ghost with a home. And slowly, carefully, like flowers growing through cracks in the pavement, Keisha and Sunwoo began to build something real. 6 months after Zahir's death, they sat on the balcony of the penthouse, watching the sunrise paint Los Angeles in hues of bruised purple and gold. "I want to go legitimate," Sunwoo said abruptly. Keisha looked at him over the rim of her coffee cup. "Legitimate? As in taxes and W-2s. "Transition the family operations," he nodded, his eyes bright with a new kind of fire. "Real estate. Tech investment. Construction. It will take years to wash the money, to restructure the assets. But I'm tired of the violence, Keisha. I'm tired of always checking the backseat of my car. I want to build something that doesn't require a gun to defend." "And what would you do with all that clean money?" she asked, smiling. "Revitalize Koreatown. Build affordable housing. Fund schools. Create opportunities." He turned to her, his face open and vulnerable. "Actually help the community instead of just bleeding it." "That's a good dream, Sunwoo." "It's our dream," he corrected. "If you'll stay with me. If you'll help me build it." He reached into his pocket. No weapon this time. A small velvet box. "Keisha, I know we've only been together a year. I know our relationship started in blood and adrenaline. But I want to marry you. I want to build a life that is defined by creation, not destruction." He opened the box. A simple platinum band with a single, flawless diamond. "Marry me," he whispered. "Please." She should have said it was too fast. She should have been rational. But Keisha had spent her whole life being tactical, and it had only led to loneliness. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling. "God, yes. Let's build something beautiful." He slipped the ring on her finger. It felt heavy. It felt like an anchor. It felt like home. The transition took 3 years. It was a grueling process of untangling the syndicate from the underworld. Sunwoo systematically moved Baekdu operations into the light. He turned money laundering fronts into functioning businesses. He funded clinics, job training centers, and scholarships. He transformed from a crime boss into a community pillar, though he kept a shadow security force, led by Keisha, just in case. Keisha became his partner in every sense. Officially, she was a security consultant. Unofficially, she was his strategist, his conscience, his right hand. She trained private security firms, consulted on corporate protection, and used her military skills to keep their new world safe. They married in a small, private ceremony in a garden overlooking the Pacific. Keisha wore a simple white dress that showed off her scars rather than hiding them. Sunwoo wore a traditional hanbok in deep blue and silver. They exchanged vows in English and Korean, promising to protect each other from all threats, foreign and domestic. "You know," Keisha whispered during their first dance, swaying to a slow jazz number, "people will always see us a certain way. The soldier and the criminal. The killer and the kingpin." "Let them judge," Sunwoo said, pulling her closer. "We know the truth. We are survivors who found each other in the dark and decided to make our own light." "That's enough for me," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. 2 years later, they stood together at the grand opening of the Baekdu Community Center in South Central LA. It was a massive, gleaming facility offering everything the neighborhood had been denied for decades: tech labs, art studios, medical services. "We should give a speech," Sunwoo said, adjusting his tie nervously. "You give the speech," Keisha laughed. "I'll stand menacingly in the background. Play to our strengths." Sunwoo smiled, that rare, genuine smile that still made her knees weak, and stepped up to the microphone. He spoke about second chances. He spoke about redemption. He spoke about how your past does not have to dictate your future. The crowd cheered, not out of fear, but out of hope. Afterward, as the reception wound down, a young black girl approached Keisha. She was maybe 10 years old, clutching a brochure. "Are you really a soldier?" the girl asked, eyes wide. "My dad said you were in the army." Keisha crouched down to eye level. I was. A long time ago. That's so cool, the girl breathed. I want to be in the military someday. Be a pilot maybe. But my teacher says girls like me, we don't do stuff like that. Keisha felt a pang in her chest. She reached out, gently touching the girl's shoulder. Listen to me, she said fiercely. Girls like us? We can do anything. We can be anything. We can save the world if we want to. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You understand? The girl nodded, a spark igniting in her eyes. Yes, ma'am. Keisha watched her run back to her parents, and she felt something inside her chest loosen. A knot she hadn't known was there. This was it. This was what the pain had been for. To survive so she could tell the next generation that survival was possible. You're going to be an amazing mother someday, Sunwoo said softly, appearing at her elbow. Keisha stood up, turning to face him. Is that your subtle way of bringing up the topic? Maybe, he shrugged, looking almost shy. If you're ready. I know we said we'd wait. But I want a family with you, Keisha. I want to raise kids who understand both our worlds. Who know that their mother is the strongest person alive, and their father is spending every day trying to be worthy of her. You're already worthy, she said, kissing him amidst the balloons and the streamers. And yes, let's have a family. Let's build something that outlasts us. 5 years later. The house in Pasadena was a cliché in the best possible way. White picket fence. Rose garden. A swing set in the backyard. It was the kind of normalcy Keisha had once despised and now cherished like a treasure. She stood in the kitchen, watching their 3-year-old daughter, Yuna Min, destroy a bowl of spaghetti. Yuna had Sunwoo's dark, intelligent eyes and Keisha's fierce, stubborn chin. Sunwoo walked in, loosening his tie after a day at the office, his legitimate, boring, wonderful office. How was your day? Keisha asked, handing him a glass of wine. Good. Boring. Perfect, he said, kissing her temple. The new security contract came through. We'll be training corporate teams for the next 6 months. He watched Yuna laughing as she smeared tomato sauce on the table. She asked about my scars again this morning, he said quietly. What did you tell her? The truth. That I made mistakes. That I got hurt. But that the pain led me to her mother. He looked at Keisha, uncertainty in his gaze. Was that right? She's so young. She deserves honesty, Keisha said firmly. We both do. Our past made us who we are, Sunwoo. We can't hide it. She should know her mother is a badass who can take down 5 men single-handedly, he grinned. 7 now, Keisha corrected with a smirk. I've been training. He laughed, a rich sound that filled the kitchen, and Yuna squealed, demanding uppy. Sunwoo scooped his daughter up, swinging her around until she shrieked with delight. Keisha watched them, the former crime lord and the daughter of a soldier, and felt the sheer impossibility of it all. That a chance encounter in a rainy alley, a split-second decision to drop a trash bag and throw a punch, had led to this. A family. A home. A life. Sometimes, late at night, the nightmares still came. Keisha still saw Zahir's dead eyes. She still heard the screams of her team in Syria. Sunwoo still woke up sweating, haunted by the violence of his youth. But they were never alone in the dark anymore. Sunwoo was there to hold her. Keisha was there to ground him. They reminded each other that they were more than their worst moments. 10 years after that night in the alley, at a charity gala for their foundation, a reporter asked Keisha what advice she would give her younger self. Keisha thought about the scared woman in the apron, hiding in plain sight, waiting to die. She thought about the soldier who believed she was unlovable. She looked across the room at Ryo Sunwoo. He caught her eye and winked, raising his glass. I'd tell her, Keisha said into the microphone, that sometimes the most reckless thing you can do is exactly what you need to do. That saving someone's life might actually be the moment you save your own. She smiled, a genuine, dazzling smile. I'd tell her that love can grow in the cracks between violence and fear. That the person you least expect might be exactly who you've been waiting for. Because falling in love with the person you saved isn't about the rescue. It's about the recognition. It's about seeing someone else with the same battle scars, the same desire for redemption, and realizing you don't have to fight alone anymore. She had saved his life that night. But in every way that mattered, Ryo Sunwoo had saved hers too. Together, they had built something neither could have created alone. Not a fortress, not an empire, but a family. And that was the greatest victory of all. Wow. Just wow. From a bloody alleyway to a beautiful life in Pasadena. If Keisha and Sunwoo's journey didn't hit you right in the feels, I don't know what will. This is the kind of storytelling we live for here at Afro-Korean Soul Tales. But listen, the story doesn't have to end here. If you want more powerful, heart-pounding love stories like this, you need to smash that subscribe button right now. Like, seriously, destroy it. Drop a comment below, tell me, would you have saved Sunwoo in that alley? I want to hear from you. Like, share, and subscribe to Afro-Korean Soul Tales so you never miss a beat. Until next time, keep the soul alive.